Hermione's Song, Chapter 24 Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Hermione hugged her friends as they all filed out of the castle on their way back to their homes for the Christmas holiday. Harry was in a chipper mood since the Weasleys had gotten permission from Dumbledore for him to spend the break with them.
With a final hug and wave, Hermione headed off in the opposite direction the rest of the students were headed.
She didn't need to take the train back to London. This holiday, she was returning to visit her parents in a much more exclusive form of travel. Hermione rounded the short stone wall that led to the Forbidden Forest and saw the doctor pacing nervously in front of the TARDIS. He had worn a short path in the snow that had fallen the night before. Hermione paused for a moment to watch him. She was slightly amused when she realized she was having a hard time accepting the fact that this amazing man was now her boyfriend. It had been easier to accept that he was an alien than to believe she was worth being loved by him. He could have any woman throughout history, and he chose her. The doctor saw her and gave her a short wave before returning to his pacing. She waved back and hurried to join him, happy as only people newly in love could be.
"Ready to go?"
Hermione asked when she was standing next to the doctor. She watched him take in a deep breath, like he was trying to calm his nerves.
"What's wrong, Doctor?"
she inquired. The doctor unconsciously took Hermione's hand, much to her pleasure. "You would think that after 900 years, I wouldn't get so nervous about meeting someone's parents," he laughed. "Must have something to do with how many times I get hit in the face by mothers," he joked.
"They'll love you, because I love you,"
Hermione reassured the doctor.
"At least I hope they will,"
she silently added. The doctor noticed her hesitation at the end. "What exactly have you told them about me?" he asked her. Hermione bit her lip before answering.
I told them I had started dating an older man,"
she said hesitantly.
"Oddly enough, Dad had an easier time with that than Mother did,"
she admitted.
"I thought we could spring the whole time-traveling alien thing on them after they get to know you,"
she suggested. The doctor gave her a disapproving look.
"Doctor, my parents are dentists. I think their worldview was stretched pretty far when they learned their daughter was a witch. Telling them right away I was dating a man from another planet might just push them over the edge,"
she tried to explain. The doctor shook off his misgivings and opened the door of the TARDIS for her. "All right, let's go meet your parents," he said bravely. He hadn't yet figured out a good way to explain that the people they were going to meet were actually her adopted parents, since they had never bothered to tell her themselves. He promised himself that he would take her to meet the Pawns right after their visit with the Grangers. Granger House, Chelsea. A small wind picked up in the trees lining a park that sat across from a neat set of townhomes. The sudden breeze disturbed a small bird sitting in one of the low-hanging branches. The bird flew off in a snit as the wind picked up, and a strange noise rose and fell next to the playground. When the TARDIS finished materializing, the doors opened cautiously, and the doctor poked his head out. Hermione's head appeared around the doorframe a little below his.
"Not bad, Doctor,"
she praised.
"My home is right across the street,"
she informed him. The doctor's head disappeared, and Hermione rolled her eyes. She grabbed hold of his tweed jacket and pulled him out of the TARDIS.
"Honestly, Doctor,"
she complained. They paused long enough for him to lock the TARDIS doors, and then made their way to Hermione's childhood home. When they reached the front door, Hermione took the doctor's hand in hers and gave it a quick squeeze. He squeezed back and then lifted his hand to knock on the door. The door opened before his hand even touched the brass knocker, startling him.
"You, mister, are late,"
Hermione's mom scolded, opening the door. Hermione was beyond embarrassment. She knew her mother always had her own way of doing things, but she never thought she would yell at her boyfriend before they even got around to the introductions. Hermione looked over her mother's shoulder and saw her father was doing his best to look stern. Hermione let out a deep sigh and decided to try and smooth things over.
"Doctor, I would like to introduce you to my parents,"
she started to say. The doctor interrupted her, his voice going high with excitement. "Amy! Rory!" he exclaimed. He suddenly looked very confused. "How? When? No, wait. Let's go back to how, he babbled. He drank in the sight of his best friend standing in front of him. Amy's long red hair still fell well below her shoulders. She looked as if she had aged only a few years from when he last saw her. Rory looked exactly the same, making the doctor wonder if something more of the last centurion had stayed in this universe alongside the 2,000 years' worth of memories. Amy looked over her shoulder at her husband.
I told you we would finally manage to surprise him,
she said smugly.
You owe me a month of doing the dishes,
she taunted Rory. Amy looked back at the doctor and her daughter.
Get in here before Hermione gets cold. I know you don't feel it, but she does,
she reminded him. Hermione blinked several times before following her mother and the doctor inside. Once they were in the foyer, she tried to wrap her mind around the idea that her parents already knew the doctor. She couldn't imagine a pair of dentists managing to deal with everything being a companion entailed. The friendship between the doctor and her parents was confirmed when the doctor looked at her father, a mock-serious expression on his face. Permission to hug, the doctor requested while performing a loose salute. Rory bobbed his head from side to side as he pretended to think it over. Permission granted, but make it fast, he eventually replied, completing their old friendly ritual. The doctor threw his arms around Amy, gave her a huge hug, and then moved on to Rory, giving him a big hug as well. Hermione stepped off into the sitting room so she could have a better view of what was happening. She watched as the doctor started to pace manically in the entry hall, running his hand through his hair. So many questions. Where to begin? The doctor pondered aloud. I know. I'll start with the biggest, most confusing one, he decided. Dentists?
Seriously? He stammered as he looked back and forth from Amy to Rory, his expression one of complete disbelief.
Rory looked a bit uncomfortable and ran his finger around the inside of his collar. Yes, well, you see, we aren't really dentists, he admitted, glancing at Hermione, looking to see how she would react to the knowledge that they had been lying to her for her entire life. We're actually field operatives for UNIT, he explained. All of those emergency calls to replace a knocked-out tooth after a pub brawl were actually calls to investigate alien sightings, he told Hermione. Hermione flopped into one of the oversized chairs across from the couch.
Oh, thank God! That's a relief,
she blurted out before she could stop herself.
I was really beginning to worry,
she said to no one in particular. Hermione became a bit self-conscious when she realized everyone was looking at her.
No offense, Dad, but I could buy you being a dentist. Mother, not so much so,
she tried to explain.
I really started to worry when I was looking through her closet last year trying to find a blouse to borrow. I came across that box of costumes,
she told Rory.
After seeing the Roman outfit and the sexy policewoman costume, and with Mother being gone at least one weekend night a week, I began to worry that she might actually have been a stripper, she
admitted sheepishly. Amy heard the doctor and Rory snickering behind her. She turned around and glared at them.
Shut it, you two,
she commanded. Both men suppressed their laughs like they had been cut off with a knife. Amy returned her gaze to her daughter.
For your information, young lady, the Roman clothes belongs to your father, and I keep the policewoman outfit around because it was what I was wearing when I met your boyfriend after I grew up, she told her. The doctor saw Hermione's expression sour when her mother told her she had met him dressed up as a stripper. He decided it would be much safer for everyone if he changed the subject. Getting back to my questions, let's go over how this happened, he suggested. After you left us at Demon's Run, River took us back to Earth, Rory told the doctor. We were upset at first that she had brought us to 1980, he went on. That was until, of course, you and Hermione showed up, he amended. Huh? Was all Hermione was able to say. Even her great mind had its limits. Amy snapped her fingers and ran upstairs to her bedroom. After a moment, she returned holding a piece of paper. You told me to give this to you when the time was right, she told the doctor. She handed it over to the doctor, who immediately recognized his own handwriting. The only thing written on the paper was 2 sets of spatial temporal coordinates. He smiled after memorizing the numbers. Right. I'll get the rest of my answer 16 years ago, the doctor said smugly. He walked over and pulled Hermione out of her chair. Come along, Hermione.
Time to go rescue yourself and bring you back to your parents, he told her. As the Doctor and Hermione made their way back to the TARDIS, Rory called out, his fatherly instincts taking charge. Even though he knew she had been destined to fall in love with the Doctor, Rory still had a hard time with his teenage daughter dating, let alone entering into a lifelong, committed relationship. "Don't stay out too late," he yelled, again trying to look stern. Rory sighed and looked at Amy, shaking his head. "Ugh. Who am I kidding?" he muttered. "Have her back sometime this decade," he yelled to his future son-in-law.